All right, guys, welcome back to the Iron and Ash podcast. I'm your host, Whitman. We're going to be doing something a little bit different today because there's a lot that I kind of want to get into in this intro. So, we're actually going to start with our quick little cigar review. Today, we're smoking the NUB Connecticut, and this is actually my first ever NUB.
Now, I was
Funnily
going to
enough.
call it a nub,
You were
and then
gonna
I
call it a
picked
nub.
it up because it's short.
It is short and sweet. It's a little chode.
Wasn't going to call it that. Okay, so Connecticut. Tell me about the nub, because I am somebody who knows absolutely nothing.
Like I said, so this is the NUB Connecticut. First nub I've ever smoked, but a Connecticut is usually a real mild, kind of smooth, buttery, slightly vanilla kind of flavored cigar you can almost get out of every single Connecticut. So yeah, we're gonna light up and
So now, I watched your podcast once, and I think it
I'll
was
go.
Zoe.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Mhm.
And he was like, "Oh, you got to cut it with the V." Now, mind you, I've had one cigar my whole life, so I'm not a expert by any means. So
Well,
are we doing a little circle cut here?
yeah, it's a nice little straight cut there. So I wanted to mix things up today a bit because this intro is gonna be a little bit longer. So I wanted to introduce this cigar first, and then I'll introduce my guest here. Um, you may have noticed the name of the podcast is now Iron and Ash instead of the Smoking Men. I have done a lot of thinking and spent a lot of time kind of refining my vision for the podcast and what I'm trying to create here. And smoking cigars really is a secondary aspect of what I'm trying to achieve. Thinking about things, the real goal is kind of as we've already touched on, it's a philosophical podcast at the end of the day. We're discussing masculinity, theology, a little bit of politics eventually, and just things to help encourage and build up great men. So that's the focus, and with that focus, we've developed the mantra reflection, cultivation, and brotherhood. And this really does capture the three pillars that we outlined in the first podcast, but it simplifies it. And again, as part of this time of reflection, one other thing about this podcast is this isn't a life advice podcast. It's not a life coaching podcast. It's not some cut and dry, oh, we see this, so do this. This is a dialogue-based podcast. It's a conversational podcast by laymen for laymen. It's about trying to dig for these kernels of truth in the anecdotes of everyday life. It's finding truth through lived experience. And that's why we have this back and forth conversation. So with that, my guest today is Say. Say is a full-time missionary and my brother-in-law. Before he kind of fully introduces himself, we are still keeping the cigar portion, the cigar review, but again, it's secondary. I guess I'll touch on some that the mantra was kind of developed as a more refined but also simplified version of the three pillars. You know, cigars are kind of the, hesitate to say, but accurate ritual that brings us together. It's a time for reflecting on oneself. It's kind of their quiet, our quiet time, so to speak, and something that brings us together. Cultivation is the often laborious act of bettering oneself or growing. You think of cultivating crops, you're out there having to plow the field, plant the crops, water them, tend to them. And we do this with ourselves as men. And then brotherhood, because at the end of the day, we all need people in our corner helping us out and supporting us. So, yeah, with that, Say, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, and why don't you start by telling us what got you into being a missionary?
Okay, like you said, my name's Isaiah. I'm his brother-in-law. Married his beautiful sister 10 months ago now. We're getting ready to hit up about a year. I live in Hawaii currently in the United States. Grew up in Washington State. And yeah, as I was getting ready to finish high school, I became a counselor, helping people get off drugs. And then as I was getting ready to consider, what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, kind of got sidetracked, did a missions course with an organization called YWAM, also known as Youth with a Mission. I felt from there that like this was like a lifelong calling. So completely just got sidelined as soon as I finished my bachelor's degree. And I've been a missionary ever since, going on about like 3 years now.
What got you into being a missionary? What was that kind of initial spark? You said it. You feel like it's been a bit of a lifelong calling, but at what point when you were being a counselor helping people with drugs did you realize I need to stop this and I need to fulfill this?
Yeah. So flashback to when I'm about 15 years old, I started going to a church that had like every year they had a youth group missionary trip. And so it was about a week long. And so I joined this church. I went on their mission trip and I go to Belize. Now, like I said, I'm in Belize for like 9 days and I just absolutely loved it. But not in this way of like, oh, I need to travel the world, but more of just like it felt like I was doing like something I was meant for.
Mm.
You ever done something and you're like, dude, like I love
This is it.
I'm good at it. Yeah, that's exactly how it felt. But I pretty much went home and forgot about it. I was still 15, like I said at the time, and so I still hadn't even started college yet. About a year or so later, I do this college program that essentially lets me graduate high school with my AA degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I'm completely focused on counseling at this point. That's when I get my AA degree in human services, and I start doing counseling with youth, helping them get off drugs, all that kind of stuff. And so the obvious next step after that, of course, with prayer, was to go get my bachelor's degree. So I did. I'm at a church conference, last few days of the year, and somebody comes up to me and they're like, "Oh yeah, I work with this organization. It's called YWAM. You should totally do it." And in my head, I'm like, "Yeah, I should do it," or that's what I said out loud, rather. And in my head, I was like, I'm totally not going to do this. Like, it sounds cool, but I'm totally not going to do this. Yeah. And I kind of gave myself 3 reasons why, and it was money, my family, and then also my school, because it was something that I thought maybe, I could do for 6 months and then just come right back to counseling. So it didn't feel like it was getting in the way of my career, but I didn't have the money at the moment, and I needed to have like $10,000 in like 3 months, and I had like $10.
Yeah.
So I was like, not going to be able to do that. I also was supposed to start my master's program like 2 weeks after that. Also, like, family is really, really big to me, which is also why missions is really hard because you have to move away from your family, essentially. I was like, I don't know about this. So I go home and tell my parents, what do you guys think about this? About me going and doing this program? Because I'd be gone for at least 6 months. And I've never been away from home like longer than a week. And they're like, no way. By the way, the program's in Hawaii. They're like, no way. While you were at that church conference, we were at a friend's house, and we were planning our 10-year anniversary. We're going to be in Hawaii. We're going to go to multiple islands, and we're going to be in Kona, which is the island I was going to be on. And we're going to be there from September 14th to the 16th. So that means the only full day that they were going to be there was September 15th. And the graduation day for the program was September 15th.
Dang.
And so I was like, whoa, like maybe this is God. And also I felt like that really softened their hearts. They're kind of like,
Skeptical.
Maybe he should. Yeah. They were super skeptical. And then with that, they were like, maybe he should do this. And then on top of that, I get a message within a few days that apparently they couldn't finish the paperwork in time for my master's program. And so I wasn't going to be able to start until the next quarter. Mind you, I was supposed to start 2 weeks. This is like January 1st. I was supposed to start early January, but they don't have any program starts until the next September. So I wasn't even going to be able to start school for the next 9 months. And that was my second doubt. And then my third doubt, the third was the money. And I just had money continually come in completely miraculously.
Wow.
My bachelor's degree was completely paid off. And we had gotten an email from them. They were like, hey, you've had 2 separate times where you paid for a class twice. Here's like $2,300 back.
Dang.
And my parents were like, I don't know why. I feel like this needs to go straight into your program. So it went straight into my program. And then a few other, like miraculous donations. I had somebody that was like, yeah, I'll give you $50. And then the next day, I get a notification, and they sent me 1,000.
Damn.
And so I was just like, this is the Lord. This program was definitely like what the Lord wanted me to do.
And here you are 3 years later.
Yeah, exactly. I finished the 6 months, and then every single time I was like, okay, like this program's awesome. I just would so heavily feel like there's another program, that I need to do.
Yeah.
And so I did the 6-month introductory course, and then in the middle of the introductory course, I was praying, and I had this like urge to call Kona home, and I was like, what? I'm going back to Texas, and I'm going to become a counselor. Like, what do you mean? And ended up doing another program, and then I felt like I actually needed to start leading out missions. And so like at the time I was a student, and I had like a leader above me, and they kind of set up all of our stuff, and I felt like I needed to be a leader within it. And so I signed up, and that was a 2-year commitment. Yeah, I've just been in it ever since, and it's like become a lifelong calling now, for sure.
I like that. So
We'll try to light this again.
At the end of the day, God was your catalyst for getting started.
For sure. I would never have done that, because my family also owns a counseling business. And I already had my bachelor's for counseling, and pretty much was guaranteed.
Your life set up, and then God redirected your course.
Yeah.
That's cool. What does daily life as a missionary look like? I think a lot of people have this perception, especially with social media. And social media it's all a facade. It's all fake at the end of the day. People show what they want the world to see. But unfortunately, with that, oftentimes people just see the little snapshots, the fun snapshots of you being in another country, getting a scone in Italy, or, in the jungle in Africa. They don't actually see the witnessing part. And so I think there's this misunderstanding of what you do as a missionary. So take us through, what does daily life as a missionary look like?
Daily life of the missionary. I liked one thing that you said in there. You're like, oh, you got a scone in Italy. Like, wow, you had such a great time, I'm sure. Like, but what did you do?
Yeah.
I'll take you to a story real quick. One time I asked somebody to support me. And they were like, you know what? One thing I appreciate is every single person I know, especially because I'm based out of Kona, Hawaii. So everyone's like, oh, wow, Hawaii.
Yeah, really suffering for the Lord there.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's like, I know a lot of people that are with your organization, and they work in Hawaii as well. Like, and all I see is pictures of them at the beach. Well, I'm like, that's your fault as a missionary, not the person who's seeing that.
Yeah.
That's the missionary's fault.
Yeah.
You might do all of this stuff, but who cares if the only thing that people who are also potentially might want to actually invest in you and what you're doing, if they only see you at the beach, why are they going to want to pay for you to be at the beach?
Exactly.
And this isn't even oh, this is a tactic to try to fool. No, the Lord wants missions to go out. I mean, one of Jesus' last things that he ever did was give the Great Commission. So he wants missionaries to go out. And you're kind of doing a disservice by just posting all your beach photos and, you in a bikini, or you in your, board shorts or whatever. Yeah. And so that is a huge thing I think that missionaries need to be careful of, is what they're posting on their social medias. Now, what does the daily life of a missionary look like? For me personally, I am leading out programs currently. If you kind of do the equivalent of a school, I would be similar to the principal, and then I would have staff or teachers underneath me, and then the teachers would have students. If that kind of makes any sense. And so for me, every 3 months, I have something different going on. So for example,
so walk us through what's going on right now. You wake up, then what happens? Generally speaking.
I always do a quiet time in the morning. I always start my day off with the word. So that's my personal time. But once I quote unquote go to work, something that's really big for us is that we want to have daily worship. Especially because we generally want to cultivate an area for believers to focus on the relationship with the Lord. Because if you're going to be a missionary and you're pouring out, we really want to have like everything centered around the Lord. And so we usually start our day out with worship and whatnot, and then we'll have classes, and I might be teaching them, or I might be.
What do these classes entail? Like, what are the classes on?
When we have students, when our students come, it can be anything from, what does it mean to be a missionary, all the way to like very practical things like, oh, if you preach the gospel like this, that's not gonna work. If you just kind of go out and do, a turn or burn on a microphone, that might not be the best thing. Or like, how do you actually talk to a Buddhist, or what do Buddhists believe? That kind of thing, all the way down to like, what is the Holy Spirit? And so it completely depends. So for us, when we run these introductory courses, which that was the first, flashback to when I heard the Lord tell me to go to YWAM, that 6-month program, that's our introductory course. When we have that, every single week is a different topic, and we'll bring in, people from around the world, but we're helping facilitate that. So I'm introing the person. I'm sitting with my students. I'm also kind of like seeing like, hey, what are my students getting in? Because the thing is too, the most impactful version of discipleship is life on life, when you're actually living life with people. So I have a friend she's in her 40s, and she'll purposely go out of her way to try to get rooms with, like the students and our staff, to actually like live alongside them. Because the things that you do in your everyday life actually disciple people. What people see you doing disciples them almost just as much as your words, or like, the advice that you give them. So like I said, I personally do a ton of logistics. So I just recently ran a program that was also moving. So it was a Bible program. All of our students memorized 90 minutes of the Bible. But we went to 7 different countries. And so I'm ordering our buses. I'm getting all of our places to stay. Sometimes I'm helping, get all of the food. Sometimes I'm teaching a class.
So like you said, really like being a principal and having to organize the school.
Yeah.
And all the fundamental aspects of getting people actually out in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what does it look like when you're actually out in another country?
I think a big thing is evangelism.
So do you guys just, like, you'll wake up and you kind of just walk around and kind of listen for a nudge from the Holy Spirit, or do you guys have a plan, and then do you just do that all day, or how's that kind of look?
Honestly, sometimes we just have fun with it. Sometimes what we'll do is so for example, this last time I went out with like 40 people, and we all just stood in a circle, and we had somebody count, everybody 1 to 20, the next people 1 to 20, and then you find out your partner. Like if whoever was 18, they're partners, and it's just like, okay, see you guys in 3 hours. Let us know what happens, or sometimes, we'll be like, next person I see that is homeless, I'm going to talk to them. But for us, when we were running the school, something that was important was that we made sure we did weekly evangelism, like pretty much no matter what. And you'd be surprised how many missionaries don't evangelize.
Isn't that the point of being a missionary?
Exactly. Now, look, don't get me wrong. There's mercy ministries. There's different things that you can do that are all considered missions.
Yeah.
I can go out. I have a friend, for example, they have like some medical experience. And so they go on a boat to, say, Papua New Guinea. And they find underprivileged people who are broke. They live on an island, very poor country. Maybe they have bad eyesight, or they don't have any dental care whatsoever in their country. And they go and help these people. Amazing. I love that. And then what better time is there to preach the gospel?
Yeah.
Than if you just went and did some medical care with somebody and actually took care of them. Because there's people who do, medical missions, and I'm like, how are you any different than a random atheist who also just cares for people? You know what I'm saying? Like, why call yourself a Christian missionary if you're doing the exact same thing than somebody who's just working with, like, who? And so big thing is evangelism, and there's so many different ways that you can do it. Like I said, you can do medical missions. When I went to Pakistan a couple of years ago, crazy place by the way. Um, Love Pakistan. We set up huge meetings, and we would invite Muslims to come to these meetings, and we would speak on stages. Sometimes we would do family visits. When I was in Belize, we found a local church and helped build a sidewalk for them. And so there's so many things that you can do, but if you're not partnering it with the gospel, I would argue like that's not missions. If you're doing something nice for the community, great, cool. I don't I don't see how you would call it like Christian missions or call yourself a missionary if you're not actually spreading the gospel, which is the whole reason you're there. I mean, right? I've heard of people that have been in places for 25 years, and they're like, "Oh, we saw two people give their life to Christ." And mind you, it's not just about numbers. There's a guy named Reinhard Bonnke, and they estimate that he's probably seen about 77 million or 75 million ish salvations.
Wow.
And there's somebody out there who's probably only seen 3, and the Lord sees both of them, and He's like, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." That it's not about numbers, but if you're going somewhere for 25 years and it's a nation that like the gospel is illegal in, you see no salvations. I've never heard you evangelize before, and you somehow have never gotten kicked out, or nobody's even aware of what you're doing, or they just think that you're like a nice person, then are you really like actually helping the gospel go out? I'd argue no. So long story short, what is it? What is a day in the life of a missionary? Somebody who like can truly call himself a missionary.
A good missionary, yeah.
Yeah. Is somebody who evangelizes, in whatever country they go to, or does.
So
some
at least
type
when
of
you're out
ministry.
in the field, you would say the majority of your time is spent going out, walking, and listening to that push from the Holy Spirit on, and just trying to spread the gospel. How many hours do you think you would say, just to clarify, like you go out and you spend evangelizing?
I think it definitely depends on the season, because I've had
Depends on the day,
times
yeah.
where I'm like, I'm going on a mission trip, and the only thing I'm doing is ministry. But like, for example, the program that I just ran was specifically like a Bible school.
Yeah.
And so this program, we already run it in Kona in a stationary form. And it does not include any evangelism. It's just like it's a school. It's to learn the Bible.
Yeah. Your mission is, kind of raising up these other missionaries.
Yeah.
To go out and spread the gospel. So at least for now, your day in the life of a missionary is very logistical.
Yeah.
Very much being a school principal.
Yeah.
And managing all the staff, the courses, guest speakers, etc. Yeah. And then when you're out in the field, that's when you get to really do the evangelism and spend time going to like churches.
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, the one that we just ran was,
and then doing some like humanitarian work, correct?
For sure, yeah, absolutely, and it's different in every place you go. When I was in Pakistan, we didn't have like we're going out every day on the street necessarily, but anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week, we would be in these big events of anywhere from 200 to 1,500 people, and we're preaching the word, and so that was our way of spreading the gospel, and we're inviting a ton of Muslim people to come in. But then there was a day that we went to a brick factory. So if you guys don't know, Pakistan, slavery is essentially legal. It's like a loophole, but it's essentially legal. You kind of just sell yourself into slavery. It's indentured servitude, really.
Indentured servitude.
But then, people kind of get stuck in it for like 50 years. But we went and we ministered to them. And then I've had times where I've went and helped somebody build something. There's definitely those things. Like I said, the program that we just did was a full-on school that we already do stationary, and then we added, and so we didn't change our curriculum at all. Then we added traveling to 7 countries, a sightseeing day every single week. Sometimes within the 7 countries, we also were in multiple locations. Mind you, this is all in 10 to 12 weeks. And then we added our weekly evangelism on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had probably a 50-hour schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Or, before the evangelism, we already had 40 to 45 hours scheduled. And then we added our evangelism on top of
Mm-hmm.
it. And we only saw one day, even though we only had evangelism scheduled once a week, we only had one day in the entire school where there might not have been evangelism.
Hmm.
Every other day, evangelism. But for example, I have some times where I'm not doing a Bible program.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going out 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week and doing some sort of ministry, whether it be a house visit, whether it be face to face. Like I'm just walking in the park and I'm talking to some random dude
Mm-hmm.
that I just walked up to, and I'm working out with him because he's at the workout part of the park. There's so many different forms.
So differs day to day and really differs person to person. But really, if a missionary is being a good missionary, the focus of their work is evangelizing and then aiding in
Souls.
humanitarian effort, and that's mostly what you've seen when you've gone to other countries.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you're basically a principal, and you're in this kind of leadership role. What pressure are most good missionaries under that most people aren't aware of? For people back home, like I would say, like I have this pressure or an obligation, to provide for my wife and family. You obviously want to make an impact, so do you feel pressured to get a certain amount of people converted or to do a certain amount of humanitarian aid?
Well, I will say that there's definitely some times where I'll see somebody and, they see a lot of salvations.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been out evangelizing just as much as them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dang, I wish I saw that many salvations. Or, am I doing something wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And I think all in all, like, my answer is like, no, I'm not doing anything wrong. I think the main pressures that I'm really, like, under
Mm-hmm.
is, like, am I really being obedient
Mm.
to, like, what the Lord is saying?
Mm.
Now, I'm not saying everyone has to be some evangelist.
Yeah.
Like, me personally, it's a lot of pressure to evangelize. If I'm in the States, like, I don't like talking to people. I'll see somebody at the store and I'll just look at them and hope that they look at me. If they don't, it is what it is. I didn't talk to them. If I'm getting food, I want contactless delivery. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the type of person that really just wants somebody to, I'm not the type of person that just comes up and starts talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that is like kind of a pressure.
Mm.
Is it negative? No, not necessarily. I do think that there's some times where I didn't talk to somebody, or like we'll have like a set evangelism time, and I heard somebody talk to like more people, and I'm like, man, did I try my hardest or anything like that?
Mm.
Or I've even had times where I personally like maybe didn't do my best, or I saw somebody and I was like, I feel like the Lord wants me to talk to them, and I chickened out. I'm not even gonna lie, I've done that a couple times. And so, like, I feel like those are sometimes, like, kind of the pressures.
Yeah.
Because, like,
So there is a pressure to kind of perform.
Yeah,
you would
for
say.
sure. There's 100% because like I was telling you earlier, those people that'll just have, like, a ton of, like, beach photos. And I'm like, like, I don't want people to see that because, one, I want people to actually know, like, what's going on in the nations. And I also like want people to be inspired by what God is doing and what he's even doing through people and even just some individuals. But I will say there's definitely a small part of me that's like, I don't want people thinking that, like, I suck.
Yeah.
Or like I'm lazy, or I'm not doing my work, or like I'm a bad, like, quote unquote bad
pressure
missionary.
to maintain a good reputation as well.
Yeah, and I think that comes out of pride, 100%. I think that if the pressure is coming from, this is what the Lord asked me to do, this is a biblical tenet, like, I want to obey the Lord. Because that's a pressure too, and it's a good pressure. I think there's like a lot of good versus bad pressures.
Yeah.
It's a really good pressure to be like, I want to obey the Lord. I know that everybody who dies and doesn't believe in God, like, hasn't confessed, their eternity is a no. And so that's a pressure.
Yeah.
And, like, we're talking eternity. I'm 23 years old, and that, to me, that feels like a lot. Now I just imagine, what about 10,000 years?
Mm-hmm.
What's that like?
Yeah.
What about 50 trillion years? And
Yeah.
that's not even like a second of eternity.
Mm.
Like, you haven't even scratched the surface of fathoming eternity in 50 trillion years. And somebody's going to be in hell for eternity? Whoa. Like, this is a serious thing. And it's also what God has. If I really feel like from the Lord that I need to be, like, He wants me to be a missionary full time, how do I do that well? You know, if the Lord asks you to be a doctor, He wants you to be a doctor, and your first 10 patients, they all die because of your lack of quality, or because, you know, you decided to drink on the job or something,
Mm-hmm.
you haven't done a good job
Mm-hmm.
because you didn't actually try to do a good job. The Lord has asked me to be a missionary, and I want to do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And these are some of the things that it looks like. It looks like going and talking to that guy at the store, even though normally I would never do
Mm-hmm.
that. You know, I would never walk up to that guy. I wouldn't even sometimes I wouldn't even walk up to people that I already know,
Yeah.
because that's just my tendency
Yeah.
normally. And so there's a lot of good pressures, and then there's also a lot of pressures that come out of pride and fear
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah. That's actually that's an interesting point, I guess. If we're gonna talk success metrics, you have this pressure to perform, a pressure to be obedient to the Lord, which even as a non-missionary, I think Christian men should feel that pressure to be obedient to the Lord. So, what does success look like for you then? Like you say, okay, I if I'm called to this, I need to do a good job. I forget the Olympic athlete who said this, but he said, God made me to run fast, and when I run, I feel his pleasure. And
Oh
so
yeah.
that's success for him. So what does, success look like then?
I feel like it might even almost sound cliche, but I think it's kind of personal.
Mm,
For example, I know people that are, we have there's something called mission builders. I know I've been talking about evangelizing, like, why are you not evangelizing? There's something called mission builders, and it's people whose like job, quote unquote, is to go and help build buildings, like Christian buildings, quote
mm-hmm,
unquote. Like, that's a horrible way of putting it, but for example, like I said, I work in Kona. We have like a huge campus. It's also a college campus, and sometimes we need to build buildings,
mm-hmm,
and sometimes it's mad expensive. And so there's something called mission builders, and it's people who will come out and pretty much give, I want to say free labor, but I don't really know, but at least cheap. Um, and no, I'm not talking about like
that
you
indentured
like
servitude.
not like you're like at Lowe's and you found somebody that'll do it for cheap. No, I'm talking like somebody who's like, the Lord wants me to build buildings. You
Yeah.
know, He's made me a construction worker, and this is what He wants me to do.
Mm-hmm,
Is He necessarily a bad missionary because, let's say, 60 hours this entire week He spent building this building, even though normal work hour week is 40 hours? But He didn't evangelize on Sunday. Is He a bad missionary?
mm-hmm.
What did the Lord put him there to do?
Yeah.
You know, I one of the reasons I was kind of going in on missionaries is because the Lord put people into countries to spread the gospel,
Mm-hmm,
and they're at these countries not spreading the gospel. Now, a mission builder, if he's in on a Christian campus for an entire week and isn't leaving it, do you want him to? Do you want him to go evangelize to all the people who are missionaries,
mm-hmm,
or is like the Lord setting him there to build all these buildings?
mm-hmm,
And so I think ultimately it's obedience. And so that's why I say it's kind of like a personal metric,
mm-hmm,
because I think that there's probably people who have thousands of salvations under their belt,
mm-hmm.
like they've seen like a ton of salvations, that maybe they, like, it wasn't necessarily like God was like, you should go and do that. And that could be great. And that's awesome. But I think that there's even times where you got to see, like, what is God asking you to do? Like in that
Mm-hmm.
moment where I was telling you, like, I've seen people and I felt like the Lord wanted me to talk to them, and I didn't. But let's say I talked to 3 other people that week. Not to say that I'm a failure for not doing that one thing, but like that to me is in some metric a lack of success. You know, because I wasn't actually obedient in what the Lord asked me
Mm-hmm.
to do. And so I think the most successful person is the person who obeys the Lord as much as possible, if
I
that
like
makes
that.
any sense.
No, I like that. I mean, if, like you said, the mission builder is out there to build buildings. His success is building a building,
Yeah.
and that's what he's being called to do. If someone is being called to be a doctor and be in service, then ultimately, even if he's not necessarily preaching, and I'll give that the caveat of that's a good time to,
Great time.
interject your faith. But if he doesn't, if his calling is to be there and be a doctor and serve these people, utilizing his skills in medicine, then that's success. In the case of most missionaries, or what people have in their head as an idea of what a missionary does, going and evangelizing, then listening and responding to that nudge from the Lord, that's success.
Yeah. There will be moments in the Bible where God's like, go here and do not stop anywhere. And what is he saying? Do not preach the gospel until you get here. Why?
Interesting.
God does not want them to ask why. He's like, go obey, like do what I'm doing. So sometimes like obedience like looks weird. You're like, what? You don't want me to preach the gospel here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll go do it. Like that, to me, that's what success is. If the Lord is like, go here, and on your journey there, don't stop, don't preach the gospel, just keep going. That doesn't make sense when I'm reading it. But then I look at it and I'm like, oh man, maybe if they had stopped to evangelize everywhere, maybe somebody would have killed them before they were supposed to die. Or maybe they would have got slowed down and they would have reached the place that they were supposed to reach slower than they were supposed to.
And someone may have
Or
missed out.
maybe somebody hears this is like a weird one. Maybe somebody hears the gospel, and if they had heard it in like 2 more months, they would have been a little bit more ready to hear it, and their hearts would have been a little bit maybe more softened, and they would actually have accepted it in 2 weeks, but not right now.
Yeah.
You have a mission. Don't do anything else other than complete that mission.
I like that. I like that you touched on that you need to do your mission. Because I think that's where a lot of Christians get it wrong in some ways. They think, I'm evangelizing in Africa, or I'm building wells in Africa, and anyone who's not doing that is wrong. You could give a whole list of things people are doing that, and then they think that's the right way to do things. But there's no appreciation for subtlety or people living out their mission.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's
That's
1
good.
Corinthians 14. Essentially, I'm going to give a very not accurate. It's not like it's not verbatim, but essentially he's like, you're an eyeball, you're an ear, you're a toe. Like, should the ear say to the eye like, I'm an eye? No, like every single thing has a different purpose. My eye has a different purpose than my nose, than my ear, than my toes, than my feet. All of these things. And Whitman, you're an eye and I'm an ear, dude. Maybe I'm the butt. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm honestly probably the butt.
My wife would probably tell you I'm the butt with how much I fart.
Yeah, but so like we all have different purposes.
You're right. We all have different roles. We all have different missions, and success is being obedient to the calling that is placed on our lives. So, why do we compare ourselves so much, man? Like, why do we fall into this trap of I'm an eye, you're not being an eye, you're wrong?
Yeah.
Why do Christians fall into this? Because again, as a religion, we're both exclusive and inclusive, right? Talking about the getting a camel through the eye of the needle, getting into the gates of heaven. The road is straight and narrow, so it's exclusive in that regard. As brothers and sisters, we're supposed to be supportive and encouraging and building one another up, and again recognizing that we all have gifts and talents and can reach people differently, or you can reach individuals that I might never have an opportunity or be able to reach So why do we fall into this trap of comparison and then bringing each other down?
Yeah.
And do you see that, like, even out in the field or within missionary organizations? I guess that's kind of a two-part question. Let's just start with why do we fall into this trap?
Yeah, I think why do we fall in this trap? We are feeble. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we would read through the entire, well, of course, the entire Bible, but I think like the New Testament has like a lot of epistles within it that are very specific on like how a Christian should live life. Like I'm reading a lot through Titus right now, and it says how young men, old men, young women, old women, even how bond servants, that's a crazy topic, should treat or should be. And I think if we would all read through it, we would all find something we are not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because, that sin nature. We do things that we shouldn't do because we are so feeble. Why do we fall into comparison? I think a way that I personally sometimes fall into comparison, I kind of mentioned it earlier, like there was somebody on this last trip that I was on, and yes, as somebody who is the quote unquote like principal or like the director of the program, I fall into that all the time. Or at least I'm very tempted by it all the time, and sometimes I also fall into it of where I'll see somebody, they'll speak to a ton of people. I'm like, dude, I spoke to like 2 people. Like, what am I doing? And I need to catch myself immediately and be like, whoa, like I am falling into comparison, like right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that we do it because pride.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be awesome. I want people to see me as awesome,
Mm-hmm.
and not like that is like my motto.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just like
No one would ever say pride is their motto.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, or like I am awesome. If you see somebody with like a shirt that says I am awesome, yeah,
I mean, I have a shirt that's semi-clothed and it says I have big biceps, but
well, that at least could be a truth statement. Have you guys seen these things? I was gonna ask him.
actually, it was one of my other sisters got it for me.
See, what's wrong with that?
Something like, similar.
You got a world's best dad shirt, whatever.
Oh, no, now I'm remembering it. It said I'd flex, but I like this shirt. That was it. That was
See,
it.
That's funny. That's
Okay.
funny. But if you walk up and you see somebody got like, I am awesome tattooed on their forehead, like, that's not a joke. You know what I'm saying?
I think you're calling out the, remember the guys who used to get tap out tattooed everywhere on them? All the old MMA fighters and the guys who watched MMA but couldn't fight.
Yeah, for sure. Or like McGregor, he's got his.
You know,
tattooed on
I'm not
himself.
gonna lie. So I did MMA for, almost a full
I would
decade
have guessed that.
between from about the time I was 10 to about the roughly 2021. I wanted a tap out tattoo.
Really?
I did, yeah.
And where'd you get it?
Right. I got it as a tramp stamp.
This guy.
I'm glad I didn't get one.
What a place. Why didn't you get it?
Um,
And is it still in the books?
no. I think because it's ego. There's an ego associated with the
Ego.
brand, and
Yeah.
I think we've kind of circled it that even as someone who's dedicated their life full time to essentially evangelizing, there's still a certain pressure to perform, and there's a biblical success metric, which is obedience to the Lord, but then there's this prideful human metric, which is I have to reach all these people. So there's still this success metric again where pride and ego kind of infiltrates, and then that's probably what's leading to this comparative attitude.
100%. It's so big. I think all humans at some point deal with pride. Now, that doesn't mean that you're sinning if you have, like I said, somebody came back and they're telling stories like, hey, I saw this amazing salvation, da-da-da-da-da, and boom, kill that right there. Like, stop. It didn't mean I sinned, like I wasn't giving into it or anything like that, but it's going to be something that comes in my head that wants to fight me because the devil, he's been at this for a long time. So he's honestly pretty decent at trying to get people to slip and fall.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody watching this podcast, including me, including you, like have fallen into like pride or some type of thing
Mm-hmm.
that's like the devil's like, oh, I want to get him to, slip into this.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, let's say that thing comes in and I'm like, why am I not doing this? Why am I not good? Because then that just turns into this downward spiral of like beating on yourself,
Mm-hmm.
getting, maybe having anxiety or getting depressed or like having like a low self-image. Like, I need to just forget about that, try to do better next time. Who does like God say I am?
Mm-hmm.
Because God's like not trying to sit over here and like call me a failure. But if I dip into that pride, I will call myself that. Or I'll start believing that about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so pride is just the biggest thing because we all want to look cool. Letting yourself be consumed by pride will absolutely take you astray, and it might be subtle, but it'll happen.
Let me ask this then. When does faith become performative? I guess is the best question. And as a secondary to that, how do you combat your own ego when you're feeling those times of I want that recognition? You talked about it. Reputation. We oftentimes see these people who will just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna worship so loud on Sunday morning so everyone can see how much I love Jesus," and then they go and live an opposite style life, which you don't see, but they're obviously using performance to build up their reputation. Are there any other instances where you see that, particularly in your case in the missions field, and then when you're tempted by that, how do you combat your own ego?
Yeah, when does faith become performance? I think you can use that topic that you said, or that kind of example that you said. There's that guy worshiping super loud,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe he's like looking extra spirit, whatever.
Yeah.
Like when he's worshiping.
He's got his hands up for the YMCA instead of holding the pie.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Hey, doesn't that guy like that girl? He doesn't normally sing, but he's standing not too far from that girl he likes, and he's super loud right now. Like, what's going on? Yeah, I think that there's two people in the church that are super loud. Two different type of people. There's some people who are like dealing with performance, and there's some people who are like, God is so good. I want to praise him. I want to worship him with all my heart. It says in, I think it's Revelation, the creatures that see God in heaven, it says that 24/7 without stop ever.
Yeah,
All they
holy,
can
holy,
say
holy
is
is the Lord
holy.
God Almighty.
Exactly. I bet you've never heard anything louder than that in your whole life.
That was
Holy.
actually in your namesake,
Yeah.
Isaiah.
Huh?
That's where it is, right? Isaiah, the book of Isaiah.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you were right. It was a revelation. Look, I am the worst.
Dang, man!
Yeah.
I know more than the missionary. No, I don't.
Yeah.
Not even close. I just got a lucky one with that.
Yeah, I am horrible when it comes to where the scripture's from, but I'll tell you that right now that it's in there.
Just gotta find it somewhere in all 66 books.
Yeah, exactly. It's there though.
It's there. Trust me, bro.
Trust me.
I read
bro.
it.
Trust me. I've seen it somewhere. It's somewhere in here. And so sometimes people are worshiping loud because they are so touched by the Lord. And so, yeah, when does faith become performance? Like I said, there can be two different people who are just as loud. I think ultimately it's like, what is pushing you to do that action?
Mm-hmm.
Is it because, like, am I going out and I am evangelizing because that person, they saw a salvation, I'm going to see a salvation.
Mm.
I'm going to show them. Or like, you know what? I'm a great missionary. I'm going to go out and I'm going to see a salvation. That sounds a lot like pride, dude. That was so performative because I did it out of this place of like pride. I'm going to show people what's up.
Mm.
I'm going to show people I'm the man. I'm the missionary. I'm the missionary.
Mm.
Or am I doing it because I'm like, wow, that person saw a salvation? Amazing. That is so awesome. I am so happy that he is so happy. I want to see like God glorified in every action that I do.
Mm.
And so when fear comes up, I'm going to try to walk against it.
Mm.
And I go out and see a salvation. In both scenarios, I could go out, talk to somebody, and they decide to give their life to Christ. But there's one that's just like, it's pride, it's performance. And then there's one that's like, man, I love the Lord and I want to see like him glorified. And so I think that's like the biggest thing. Or like even like
that's the difference is
yeah.
where it two actions can look similar on the surface. The person who's singing real loud in church, but David was so overwhelmed with his love for the Lord that he
Basically in
danced
underwear.
until and they didn't wear underwear, so his robe fell off and he was dancing naked in the streets. So two actions can look similar, but where faith becomes performance is when you start using faith for essentially personal gain, whether it's to satisfy pride or to get the attention of that chick. I mean, that's why we always tried to carry the most freaking chairs, cleaning up after Sunday school, which I always carried the most.
I had the
I'm
second
just
most
saying.
after him.
You
Big
did have to say
biceps
it's all right.
everywhere.
I always had the most.
Yeah, he was curling them on the way. I think, and if somebody's out there and they're like, why am I doing something? Or like, where am I at? Is it performance? Is it faith? Da 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 da. Because I think sometimes I have to ask myself the same thing. Like, is this this? Is this
Yeah,
this?
so that leads to the next question. So then how do you combat when your ego starts to take over?
I think it's two parts. It's one, it's recognizing it. Because there's some people who will just like keep running it and they just are constantly overtaken and like diving into pride.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you like have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? You'll figure out whether or not it's for selfish desire or for God.
Mm-hmm.
And that is in every form. That's not just a missionary. That is the doctor, that's the mission builder, that's the missionary. That is the person who's pushing carts at a grocery store for their entire life. Because again, success isn't always money.
Yeah.
Success isn't what kind of job you have. Success isn't if your job is super Christian looking. It's
obedience.
Is it obedience to the Lord? And then whether or not it's performance, it's like, why am I doing it? And then how do you like combat it? I always like to call it like walking in the opposite spirit. I said earlier, like, sometimes I won't do something because of fear. And that fear will cause me to not obey. What's the opposite of fear? Courage. And I think oftentimes courage looks like doing something when you're scared, doing something hard when you're scared. It looks like talking to that person, even though like I might have a fear of talking to somebody. I need to walk in the opposite thing. And I think it's mostly like recognition.
So recognition and then action in the opposite direction. Healthy action in the opposite direction, right? Because you could obviously take it to the extreme, but healthy action in the opposite direction. So in your case, if you're afraid to talk to someone, having courage and talking to the people that God puts on your heart. In the case of the person performing for the girl, recognizing, oh, I'm just performing for the girl, and maybe, okay, I'm going to stop worshiping out loud and I'm just going to worship in my own heart until my heart gets right.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
100%. And it's a constant cycle. Like this is like something you might have to ask yourself daily, multiple times daily. It's recognition, walking in the opposite, rinse, repeat every day. And you get results.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that leaves a lot to ponder for our listeners. And to wrap up, all I'll say is, now I'm at the nub of this nub. Honestly, this was pretty much like every other single Connecticut that I've smoked. The pepperness and the spice kind of faded. And this is a little, I'd say, is uninspired. I'd give it about a 4 out of 10. Not a bad cigar, but I certainly wouldn't buy it again. If I got it for free, I'd smoke it, but I wouldn't buy it again.
It's smoky, guys. It's
smoky.
Definitely, it tastes very smoky.
The cigar is smoky.
Yeah, so if you get this for free, I also would smoke this if it was for free.
It was for free.
Yeah, he got this one for me.
With that, it's been a pleasure, and we'll catch you on the next episode.